hello and welcome to this Monday's edition of ET Now Startup Central. I'm Nantara Rai. This is the first and only daily show of its kind in the country dedicated to startups as well as entrepreneurship. We've got an action-packed show lined up for you, and this is one that we're dedicating to the massive mandate given to Narendra Modi. May 23rd was indeed historic for many reasons. It's the first time in almost 4 decades that a government has been re-elected, and look at the kind of mandate Narendra Modi has gotten. It's the strongest mandate since 1984, and that was after the assassination of Indira Gandhi. Now, it is this Modi government that is in its first term lauded for its efforts to push the startup ecosystem. Now that Modi's got the mandate again, what are the big voices from the startup universe expecting from what is popularly being called Modi 2.0? We've reached out to all kinds of czars, including the original IT czar, NR Narayana Murthy. We'll also get you a soundbite from the founder of Paytm, Vijay Shekhar Sharma, and the CEO of OYO, Aditya Ghosh. So let's get straight down to it. We'll begin with Narayana Murthy. Last week, after the results of Infosys, after the results of the elections had been announced, the Infosys founder said he's happy there's going to be continuity on the policy front. He sounded a warning that one cannot leave everything for the government to do, and there is a need for cultural transformation in India to improve productivity lessons.
It is absolutely a stupendous victory for Shri Modi ji and BJP. I am quite happy that there is going to be continuity, because one of the important requirements for any sustained economic progress in any country is the continuity of the policies and a stable government. I think both these requirements are satisfied by the current dispensation of the parliament, the new dispensation of the parliament. So I have confidence that in the coming 5 years, many of the good programs that are started in terms of Startup India, in terms of Swachh Bharat, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of Make in India, etc., in terms of encouraging entrepreneurs, in terms of the various reforms in the area of finance, in terms of alternate investment policies, etc., will be continued with even greater vigor and with greater speed. So therefore, it is a positive movement.
So, you have also now indicated that continuity would be a good thing. In fact, you told us exclusively in November 2018, but also a lot more challenges on the economic front, because, globally there is a slowdown, trade war. So what do you think has to be the priority for the new government, because they are stepping in at a challenging time as far as the economy is concerned?
Well, I think the priority, it's not so much for the government, but for every Indian citizen. And that is, first, all of us have to improve our discipline levels. We have to improve our productivity levels. Because if we want to compete with China, if we want to compete with Vietnam and other such countries, then our productivity level has to go up very fast. Then our discipline levels in terms of work habits, in terms of our punctuality, etc., has to improve. And then our ability to complete large infrastructure projects in double quick time has to happen. These are some of the areas that we are weak in. It has nothing to do with the government, but it is something to do with the Indian culture. Therefore, there is need for cultural transformation in India at this point of time, because this is a good opportunity for us to seize the various opportunities that the global markets offer in competition with China, in competition with Vietnam and other countries. So therefore, that's one. On the side of the government, we have to make it even easier for entrepreneurs to to start more and more companies, create more and more jobs, create more and more wealth for themselves, and we have to make it easier for foreign companies to come and invest in India. We want them to create more and more jobs, particularly in low-tech industries, because software and other industries can only provide jobs for reasonably well-educated Indians. However, the need of the day is to create jobs for not so well-educated Indians, and that can only happen if we focus on low-tech manufacturing and in services and in infrastructure.
So you're saying job creation will also be something that has to be a priority. But sir, also, concerns around an agrarian crisis, promises were made about doubling farmers' income. As far as the banking financial institutions are concerned, while there's a larger cleanup in also merging banks and helping them, holding them more accountable, you think a lot more has to happen on the front of the agrarian farmer issues as well?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, if you want to improve the productivity of agricultural labor, then we have to move people from agriculture to low-tech manufacturing and low-tech services. Because with agriculture contributing somewhere around 13-14% of our GDP, and with 65% of Indians involved directly or indirectly in agriculture, obviously the agricultural productivity is somewhere around 1/4 or 1/5 of Indian per capita GDP of $200 to $2,000. So that is a very low per capita productivity. So therefore, the need of the day is to shift people from agriculture to low-tech manufacturing and low-tech services after training them, and then give impetus to the people remaining in the agriculture sector to improve their productivity through new methods, new fertilizers, new research, etc., so that we can indeed compete with countries like US and China and European countries in producing more out of 1 acre of land than what we are doing today.
All right. So last couple of questions. Do you also expect the fact that this is a second term, a stronger mandate, a larger focus to be on development? Because the narrative, so to say, and some would say has been polarized, so to say. Do you think now the focus of the government will also be on development, and that will pick up as a strong narrative?
No, I think in fairness we must accept that the government of Sri Modi was focusing more and more on development, whether it was infrastructure, whether it was economic reforms, whether financial reforms, whether it was Make in India, whether it is Startup India. I think all these were in some way connected with development. For example, the other day I was going to Mysore and I was so happy to see the Bangalore-Mysore road being converted to a 6-lane highway as against 4-lane highway that it is today. So I think there are various initiatives that have started. We need to accelerate them. We need to complete them quickly, and these are all aspects of development. Absolutely.
Startup India, something that you spoke about, Infosys really had humble beginnings in the start, but over the last 5 years, it has really become a movement. It's a lot more easier for startups. Regulatory environment is opening up. So do you see a stronger push, the fact that we'll see a lot more job creators now than job seekers, with a larger push from the government also for entrepreneurs?
I think I don't want to go into the details here, but there are many other areas where we have to accelerate removing of bottlenecks for entrepreneurs. For example, we need more and more domestic venture capital, and that means more and more pension funds will have to get into with the venture capital firms, like it happens in developed countries. We have to give more and more importance to alternate investment funds, various types of AIFs. we need to ensure that all the bureaucratic hurdles that our entrepreneurs have, which should be removed. So there is a lot of work on the table to make Startup India even more successful. So I look forward to all those things happening with even a greater sense of alacrity than it happened in the last term.
Well, there you go. That's NR Narayana Murthy with his views on what the Narendra Modi government must do in second term. I promised you big voices on this edition of Startup Central. Time for the next one. Here's Paytm founder Vijay Shekhar Sharma with his thoughts on what is it that the government must do, what Paytm is planning. Here is the big boss of Paytm in conversation with Rahul Dayama.
Vijay, thank you so much for taking out the time and talking to us on ET Now. We're keen to hear your views. It's been a strong mandate for the BJP-led Modi government. As an entrepreneur, what does the mandate mean for you? And what does this really mean for the startup ecosystem really?
I think it's a very decisive and very clear mandate. A very strong government is always good for a country, and I am very happy that a country has chosen that, and very, very proud of what work as country we are going to do now. So for me, it means that we have consistency of policies, we have stability of governance, we have even more resolve to take the reforms forward, which is classically good for entrepreneurs, business, and personally, I totally believe these will be the golden years for this country.
Personally, what is your wish list from the government? We've seen the Startup India mission sort of be their pet project. It's panned out over the last 4 years. Do you now expect these initiatives to be continued with a lot more vigor? The fact that there's a stronger mandate backing them right now?
There's no doubt about it that a number of things that have been done in Startup India, Digital India initiatives have been very, very strongly moving forward. What my expectation would be that continuously upgrading the ease of doing business and faster decision making on as many policy matters, and even changing fundamental paradigm towards taking us to become a developed nation in next, let's say, 5-10 years, as many possibilities that we can drive them. So my intention would be to say that a lot of good initiatives have been continuing. Let's double down on them and complete the vision that we started them with. So Startup India, Digital India is sort of an encompassing statement. Here there are a lot of policy upgrades that can happen in many technology-led sectors where everyday consumers and citizens of this country can feel much better lifestyle every day.
You spoke about the need for policy upgrades. Over the last 2-3 years, we've seen massive changes for tech companies, be it data localization. The e-commerce policy is really in the works. The data protection bill, so to say, will also be tabled. What more issues will the startup ecosystem closely watch out for in the next 2-3 years for the government to really address?
If you look at India's startup ecosystem, we are now very clearly the third ecosystem after the United States and China. And I believe that there is a lot to learn from those ecosystems. For example, helping the companies that are being built in this country. So I would say that a lot of policies are already there and policy work has already been there. So basically a level playing field between international companies versus Indian companies, whether it is in terms of access to capital, access to jurisdictions and solutions that are needed. So I would expect, number one, level playing field between international and Indian companies. Second, I would say is that if you look at companies right now, all these countries allow different class of shares. We already have that initiative started. We need to continue to building and making of companies and giving entrepreneurs and their teams opportunity to have ownership structures the way the rest of the world has created. In other words, these two large giant startup ecosystems in the world, America and China has created. One of the very open one is dual class of shares, which gives more right to entrepreneurs to continue to influence the company over the period. So I would love to see that. Third, I'd say is that India needs more and more stable policies in terms of taxing, in terms of ownership, so that it is clearly a case where investors can perceive India as a great destination to invest, and many things got done. That is why we saw unprecedented amount of money being invested in this country. We should continue to take that forward and build an ecosystem where investors feel a lot more comfortable and a lot more supportive of Indian startups and technology companies.
Any particular pain points that you want to highlight for startups in the fintech space? We have seen concerns being raised around taxation and how that has really impacted the growth prospects of the sector.
I think financial services companies are regulated by regulators separately, but government can definitely build a lot many initiatives like under VC. We've seen how good they focus on increasing digitization. Next could be increasing banking or increasing tax collections or even increasing credit fees or insurance fees. So financial services companies sort of are already regulated by different regulators, but I would expect Finance Ministry, Technology Ministry, IT Ministry to build the market and create opportunities in market so that many new fintech companies can come forward to address those markets. Definitely the penetration of nearly every financial services in this country is very, very minuscule. It is not just a great opportunity for fintech companies and young technology companies, it is also an opportunity for countries to serve large number of consumers.
Vijay, earlier you spoke about the need to build an ecosystem to benefit or help Indian products, companies, and you've been a strong proponent as far as data localization is concerned. So do you expect the government to double down on these initiatives, because data localization has been very integral? A lot of startups, Indian ones at that, clamoring for a call to ensure there's a larger level playing field as far as the ecosystem is concerned.
I think data localization is more about sovereignty of this country being protected, less about local companies or more. You see international companies very comfortably agreeing and doing the work. So it is not about local company versus international company. It is more about sovereignty of the data of this country, citizens remaining in this country. And I think this is very well taken care and handled by government and various regulators, because I can see many companies who were international and earlier were still uncomfortable, but they have, and which is a good direction. Country. We are now a big economy. We need to take care of ourselves. If we take care of our borders, we need to take care of our data also. It is not about that data should not be going outside, but any sensitive data that is moving outside should not be ever allowed to do that, because it can compromise countries' future or security or safety, or even, let's say, our business secrets. We should be concerned about that.
All right, Vijay, thank you so much for taking out the time and joining us. Clearly, Vijay Shekhar Sharma saying too early to press the panic button as far as slowdown in consumption here in India is concerned. And he seems to be batting for data localization and a level playing field for Indian companies at the onslaught of foreign majors, so to say.
Well, there you go. That's Vijay Shekhar Sharma, the top boss of Paytm, with his views on what it is the new government must do, the pain points, and why the industry is not pressing the panic button just yet. So we've got NR Narayana Murthy, we've got Vijay Shekhar Sharma. Now time to touch base with yet another unicorn. Now with Oyo Rooms representing the hospitality and tourism industry. My colleague Parisha Tyagi reached out to Aditya Ghosh, the CEO of Oyo Rooms. Here he is in conversation with Parisha on what the road ahead must be by the government to address the pain areas for the tourism sector at large.
Has the government done a lot? Yes. Is it very different and a big step forward from where it was some years back? Yes. Has it done enough? Again, selfishly, I think there is so much more. We can look to countries like even Israel, for instance. Small country, but what a culture of innovation they have been able to build. Look at the Middle East. Countries like the UAE have been able to create this environment, this ecosystem that is encouraging young people to experiment, to innovate. So I think there's a lot that can happen now. There's a lot of opportunity that can happen. But in all of this, if we just keep our minds and hearts open to new ideas, to have different types of thoughts come in, I think that in itself starts creating the right ecosystem. As far as hospitality, tourism, etc. is concerned, this stability is great for tourism inflow, because then people see that this is a stable country, it is safe, it is secure, I can come. And also it encourages for a company like Oyo a lot of domestic travel, within India, Indians traveling and exploring new places. So that is again something which is very encouraging. But having said that, there are some policies I think that can come into play which can unlock value immediately. For example, there is a bed and breakfast policy, there is a homestays policy. Now those, if adopted by different states and brought into law, I think that can immediately start unlocking a whole entrepreneurial ecosystem and travel and domestic spend, which can have a really, really positive effect.
Yes, right, sir. That's on home and hospitality. But you have also been associated with aviation sector for a long time now, and aviation is the hottest topic these days. So which one of these sectors are you enjoying the most? From aviation to hospitality, which sector gave you the best time? Was it aviation or hospitality? And how are both of them different from each other?
That's a difficult question to answer. I think I enjoyed both for two reasons. Both have a huge connect with large number of consumers, which I really enjoy. But what kept me the happiest is the sheer number of colleagues and employees that I got to work with. Again, this kind of a sector requires a huge employee base to kind of create those several millions of moments of magic during a day. So I think both I enjoyed a lot. There is potential in both. Why? Because India is a supply constrained market. Whether it is airplane seats or whether it is hotel rooms, there is not enough to meet the demand. And if we are able to create enough quality living spaces and hotel rooms at the right quality at a much more affordable price than what was available before, I think there is infinite demand there. And that is that opportunity we are trying to chase. And then at Oyo, we have this great dream of trying to kind of create a mark for India in various parts of the world as well. We're now in several countries across the world, putting an Indian brand out there. And that, I think, is also a tremendous dream to chase.
Yes, so when you talk about expanding into several countries, we know that you've expanded into China and some other South Asian countries are also lined up. So what's there on the cards in terms of expansion and investment?
So we are going to invest something like 1,400 crores in India itself, and India and Nepal in South Asia, to be able to invest in technology, in better capabilities, in infrastructure, and creating, a better ecosystem. As far as overseas expansion is concerned, not just in India and China, which are both our home markets, but also in Southeast Asia and the Middle East, and in Europe. We made a recent acquisition in Europe that has taken us to many countries in Europe as well. So I think that growth will be all around. Increase of depth in South Asia and China, and increase of breadth in other countries. But what is interesting, Parisha, is that the value proposition that we have, that take a product which was till recently available to only a few at a very expensive price, and bring that down, make it affordable, and do consistent quality, that is something that people desire in almost every country that we go to. So that's a very encouraging phenomena.
Yes, and that has also brought down your losses to 20%. I was just reading that you plan to cut it down to 10% in this year, and then you want to turn into a profit-making company. So by when do you see that happening? By when do you expect to turn into a profit-making company?
You're sounding like my board. Well, I think the current commitment from the team is to to try very hard to bring again halve the losses from where it was last year, which will kind of bring it to about that 10%-ish value. And if that trajectory goes well, then I think we are on our way to create a sustainable, profitable business. It's very difficult to say which year at what time, but I think the trajectory is in the right direction.
What's your outlook on India's aviation sector? A lot of airlines have been trying to expand to increase their capacity, but how do you view this entire situation?
Well, I'll obviously avoid commenting on this specific situation because it's just not fair. But as far as if I just step back and look at hospitality, aviation, travel, tourism, I think these are very strong sectors in India, very strong fundamentals. Less supply, more demand, and in this kind of a supply-constrained market, I think we have all the right fundamentals to create an efficient and sustainable business. But of course, like all businesses, irrespective of whether it is media or hospitality, whoever runs a better ship is able to kind of make the most of the opportunity.
Yes, another controversy surrounding the aviation sector erupted a few days back when we heard that the promoters in Indigo Airlines, where you also worked for 10 years, have been facing some sort of clashes, and they have contacted law firms. And then Indigo came out with a statement saying the transition has been a bit difficult for them. So what do you have to say about this entire situation? In fact, your name was also mentioned in the press statement that came out from Indigo, that they have been facing some challenges in the transition. So any comments on that situation?
No, I mean, it'll just be completely unfair for me to comment on it. I also read the news, but I don't have anything more to say on it.
Well, that's the first time ever that Aditya Ghosh has spoken about the Indigo controversy, though he hasn't said anything, but it's the very first time that he's been publicly asked about it. With that, we're completely out of time. Many thanks for watching this edition of Startup Central.